To talk to us about the journey from Zwide to the biggest stages in the game of rugby, we have roped in two gentlemen. We've watched Siya Kolisi's rise to the top. Joining us virtually, we have Thando Manana, who was a decorated rugby player and is now playing an important role as a Bulls executive for strategic projects and high performance, women's manager. And then in studio, we have the award-winning journalist and commentator Khanyiso Tshwaku. I want to start with you, Thando, because this is what a lot of the sports headlines have been talking about in preparation to celebrate Siya Kolisi's 100th Test cap, is the chance, the risk that Rassie Erasmus took on Siya. Perhaps for some people who are not rugby lovers, perhaps for some people that didn't really understand where rugby was at the time, they don't quite understand why it was a risk for Rassie. Maybe give us some insight into why this was a significant decision for him to make and how it just changed the entire game within South Africa.
Yeah, thank you, and morning to the viewers, and morning to Khanyiso as well. I think for me what's important is 2012, but before that, a young man who was given the opportunity to go down to PE grey, and that's where it sort of started for him. I think leadership has always been at the center of his type of play. I mean, having played from Cravenwick right up to going to Western Province, I think we can't forget that development stage of Siya. I think for me, it was sort of when Rassie, was the first one to spot him and brought him to the Western Cape. And little did he know that, the same guy who gave him that opportunity at provincial level would have the gut and also just the determination to do what other coaches failed to do. I think a couple of years before that, there was a big opportunity for him to take over the captaincy. And that time was Alistair Coetzee as the head coach of the Boks, and that didn't happen. But Rassie, from the get-go, he entrusted him with that leadership capabilities that he had seen from the young man who had been from Zwide PE and had sort of trekked down to Cape Town. So that for me was a sort of a good full circle for Rassie and Siya. But what for me is very much significant is that since his debut against Scotland in Nelspruit up to now, Siya has never changed. I think Siya, for me, has been the complete player. He's done it all. He's faced the ups and downs, but also he's always had South Africa first, and that's what we saw. I mean, he's, for me, far better, the greatest captain we've had. Nothing to take away from John Smith, from the Victor Matfields, from the Gary Tyfman of this world, from the Francois Pienaars. But I think for him to start the journey, coming off the bench and being man of the match, I think for me, he's my man of the match, coming to play the 100th Test in France, where 2 years ago he lifted that back-to-back second World Cup, Webb Ellis, and he's looking for his hat-trick. And should that happen, and I really hope it will, in Australia, his name will be sort of engraved in the accolades of South African history, loved by many, loved by the world. Yeah. And I think that's what we needed at the right time.
I think, Khanyiso, if you just look at some of the headlines, the Centurion who captured a nation's heart, the man who launched one of Bok Rugby's greatest ever careers. You've written, I'm sure, some of these type of headlines. You've covered his career. Why do you think he was such a special person when he came to rugby, and not just a captain, not just a player, a person?
Maybe it's just one of those things that are written in the stars. I mean, I remember watching Siya Kolisi fleetingly at Selborne. They're playing grey. Well, there's a grey playing Selborne in 2008. Then they came back for Cravenwick in 2009, which also actually coincided with the rise of Kaunda Ndunja as a commentator, as an Xhosa commentator. Yeah. And he called out then at the time was doing English commentary on Cravenwick, and he actually said that here we have a Springbok in the making. And remember that loose forward is a position that is very, very, very busy. The conveyor belt here is so busy that if you as an individual fall off, there'll always be a player that will actually take your place. And if you look at how Siya's career has panned out, he's never been shy to mention people who've helped him in his path. He knows and understands that to get somewhere, you need to step on someone's shoulders. And I think as a human being, he's put himself in that position that he now allows other people to step on his shoulders to get to where they need to be. So just as from a rugby perspective, I even remember the selection furore around him not being picked in 2012 when Marcel Coetzee was picked, where he had a blinder against the Bulls, where he played for the Stormers. And then it became very difficult for then coach Heine Kameya to explain why he actually didn't pick him at the time. and then he would then get his debut the following year again. And one of the sadder things about the tenure that under Heineke made, that Kolisi played 13 tests. Under Meyer, he started none of them. But in that first time that Alistair Coetzee became coach, which was his 14th test against Ireland in Cape Town, boom, Kolisi started. And he started right up until even his 29th test when he became Springbok captain. Rassie Erasmus entrusted him with starting, gave him the captaincy. And I mean, well, tomorrow's here with him playing in his 100th test match.
Yeah, I think, Thando, that's actually the words I'm going to take from Khanyiso, that it was written in the stars for Rassie also to be celebrating his 50th test, and then Siya to be celebrating his 100th. Let's talk about the relationship and also how Rassie has helped Siya perhaps mature as a captain, mature as a player as well, and why that's so important for the longevity of his career.
I think the relationship has been an open and an honest relationship between the two. I think it's also, you know, sometimes coaches sort of have a gut feel on who the person who's best to work with that person. And I think Siya was that type of a person. I think a couple of months ago, people were sort of doubting whether he'd be having the sort of same form that many people speak of. And Rassie stood by him and said, Siya is my captain for 2025. And we'll see from there what happens. And Siya has proven Rassie right that, you know, if you entrust him with that leadership, the coach will head the management team, and they'll form that bond. And I think the nice thing about coaches and players, they also often sort of work together in terms of forming that unity. And this is not about South Africa. It's about what the team has done for South Africa and what South Africa has given back. And they've given back a lot of support and also made sure that the Springboks have become the successful team they are.
I believe we've run out of time, unfortunately, but before I let you go, Khanyiso, I think it's an important thing. Yeah. Rugby was always associated with white national pride. Yeah. And I remember having this conversation with Siya. He said he carried the weight of tokenism on his shoulders and he needed to move past that. That must have been something that Rassie helped him with, and something that many black players in the game of rugby have struggled with over the years. Yeah. Do you think that's something that we've finally gotten rid of?
Unfortunately, no. I mean, as someone who actually every so often moderates comments, will see what people say. There's always a feeling, especially when there's a black player who gets an opportunity and an extended opportunity. And it's not just limited to cricket, to rugby. Cricket also still faces the same problem where we need to understand society that we live in a country now where there is a bigger semblance of equal opportunity. And if there's a particular black player who's excelling, that player is there on merit. And that, again, heightens the importance of transformation, that transformation doesn't seek to replace black with white. What it seeks to do is to give everyone an equal opportunity.
Thank you so much. I wish we had more time, because that's one particular insight that I wanted to delve into. It was part of the mindset that Siya had to make as a shift, and that's why we're celebrating this historic moment, him celebrating his 100th cap.